Hey guys, JD Phillips here from the Appalachian Storyteller, and I'm happy to be here today with you on the Appalachia channel. Recently, with all the uproar about Cracker Barrel on social media and on the news, I got to wondering, how did this restaurant get started in the first place? And little did I know, but it actually started an hour down the road from where I live. And it's a fascinating bit of history that I'd like to share with you now. Our story begins in Smithville, Tennessee, in the spring of 1935, a time when most folks were still trying to catch their breath from the Great Depression. Not that mountain people had ever had much in their pockets to begin with. Most homes in the hollers still didn't have electricity. Heat came from wood stoves, and phones or paved roads were as rare as hen's teeth. It was in this rugged, yet tight-knit world that a boy named Dan Evans was born. His grandpa affectionately called him Danny, and though he was the youngest in the family, the boy grew up sturdy, clever, and full of curiosity. When he wasn't in school or helping out around the farm, Danny could be found riding shotgun beside his grandfather, a traveling salesman who peddled goods to the mom and pop stores scattered all across rural Tennessee. These country stores were more than just a place to buy flour, nails, or a sack of coffee. They were the beating heart of the community. They carried most anything a mountain family might need, from animal feed to fabric, from peppermint sticks to liniment oil. And more than that, they served as gathering spots where locals swapped news, shared weather predictions, and caught up on gossip from down the road or across the state line. Many of these little stores were the first buildings in the area to get electricity, followed soon after by radios and eventually black and white televisions that drew crowds like moths to a lantern. On any given day, a half-dozen old-timers might be gathered around a set inside, squinting through the static to catch a war report or hear the score of last night's ball game. Children pressed their noses to the candy counter while their mamas weighed out dry goods, and most every store had a cooler chest full of ice-cold knee-high and RC cola bottles that could make a boy's whole week. After making their purchases, folks didn't rush out the door. They lingered, leaning on the counter, rocking on the porch, or perched on wooden crates once used to haul soda bottles. If a checkerboard was around, it wasn't long before a game broke out atop a barrel that once held potato chips or cracker tins. Indeed, a trip to the general store wasn't just about shopping. It was an experience, a thread in the fabric of small-town life. For Danny, these country stores made a permanent impression on him, the way they brought a community together, and it would be something that he would never forget. By the 1950s, Danny had graduated from a military school in Lebanon, Tennessee, and spent some time down in Alabama, attending Auburn University. But like most boys with roots in the red clay and limestone hills, he eventually found his way back home. He landed a job with a local gasoline company, just as the world around him was shifting in ways no one could have fully imagined. The post-war boom brought prosperity, and with it, an explosion in automobile ownership. Suddenly, every family wanted a car in the driveway, and the freedom to go wherever the road might lead. But up until then, those roads were a patchwork mess, rough country lanes, gravel switchbacks, and the occasional two-lane state highway that twisted like a snake through the hills. Traveling was slow, unreliable, and often dangerous, especially through the steep mountain gaps. Then came President Eisenhower's grand vision, a nationwide interstate highway system that would link cities, states, and rural communities like never before. It was one of the biggest infrastructure projects in human history, and it would change everything. For good or ill, these new concrete ribbons carved straight through the heart of America, bypassing the small towns and country stores that once thrived along the old highways. What used to be a scenic day's drive became a blur of exits and mile markers. And for someone like Danny, who had grown up watching his grandpa call on mom and pop shops that were now dying off by the dozens, the change felt personal. And it was then that Danny had a grand idea. You see, the interstate created many new opportunities, mostly in new gas stations that popped up nearly overnight on the interstate exits, where motorists could refuel their cars and grab a few snacks before hitting the road again. Danny saw how these new businesses focused on quick service and helping a traveler get right back on the highway. But that wasn't the way Danny had grown up. Folks used to take their time and enjoy a visit to a store, and it was in that moment Danny saw a solution.
Give someone you love the gift of old-fashioned storytelling. 4 books for the young and old alike that will make your heart smile. Click the link below to order your copy of The Appalachian Storyteller today.
So, taking the ultimate risk, in 1969, Danny and his partner, Tommy Lowe, borrowed $40,000 and built a small gas station in Lebanon, Tennessee, just off of the Interstate 40 highway. But his store would be unlike any others, since it had a full sit-down restaurant inside, with real cooks who made Southern comfort food, such as biscuits, grits, country ham and chicken, and dumplings from scratch. Danny wanted a place for weary travelers to socialize, fill up their tanks and their bellies. The restaurant featured a general store, selling everything that used to be found in old-timey country stores, and even featured a large front porch with rocking chairs for travelers to rest before or after their meal. Danny hired a local antique store to decorate the restaurant with old-timey tin signs and vintage tools, and he hired a local farmer who made rocking chairs of the finest quality in his spare time to furnish the chairs on the front porch of the restaurant. And many times, cars would leave Cracker Barrel with a rocking chair hanging out of their trunks. So much so that eventually the farmer quit farming and took up making rocking chairs full-time to keep up with the demand. The idea was pure genius, bold in its simplicity, and yet so rooted in tradition, it felt like it had always existed. While the rest of the world was racing toward fast food and drive-through windows trying to shave seconds off a meal, Danny Evans went in the exact opposite direction. He believed the journey mattered just as much as the destination, so instead of rushing folks through their meals, he invited them to slow down, to sit a spell, to enjoy a hot plate of comfort food that tasted like it came straight out of Mama's kitchen back home. When it came time to name his new concept, a gas station combined with a country-style restaurant, Danny didn't need to brainstorm. He thought back to those childhood days, riding shotgun with his grandpa, calling on the old country stores where checkerboards sat atop flour barrels, where folks gathered not just to buy goods, but to share stories and catch up on the latest news from the Ridge or the River Valley. Those places were known as Cracker Barrels, named for the literal barrels of soda crackers that once sat in general stores. And the name just felt right. So Danny painted the sign, rolled out the rocking chairs, and Cracker Barrel was born. And what a hit it was. Throughout the 1970s, Danny opened 19 Cracker Barrels across Tennessee and Georgia, always positioned strategically alongside the new interstates that were crisscrossing the country. But he wasn't interested in building cookie-cutter stores. Each Cracker Barrel was lovingly decorated with authentic antiques and relics of rural Americana, old saw blades, butter churns, cast iron skillets, faded signs from long-defunct brands. Most of the decor came from the same antique dealer, ensuring every restaurant told a consistent story of old-time values and simpler ways. Handcrafted rocking chairs lined every porch, made by the same family of craftsmen. A horseshoe above the front door was hung for good luck, and, in a bit of Southern humor, a green traffic light marked the restroom door, letting folks know it was time to go. But change was on the horizon again. By the late 1970s, the country was in the grip of an energy crisis. Gasoline prices soared, and travel patterns shifted. Cracker Barrel made the strategic decision to phase out its gas pumps and focus entirely on what it did best, feeding weary travelers with heaping helpings of meatloaf, biscuits, and fried apples, served with a side of nostalgia. And it worked. By 1980, Cracker Barrel had fully transitioned into a standalone restaurant brand, From those humble beginnings in rural East Tennessee, it grew into a national treasure. As of today, there are 660 Cracker Barrel locations spread across 44 of America's 50 states. What started as a tribute to the old country stores of Danny's youth has become one of the most recognizable and beloved roadside stops in America. A place where the food is hot, the chairs still rock, and the checkerboard is always waiting. The story of Cracker Barrel is an American success story, if there ever was one. By the time Danny had passed away in 2012, he had lived to see that $40,000 gamble that he took come to a value of over $2.5 billion in net worth. I'd like to leave you with this final thought. You probably noticed that throughout this video, I didn't mention anything regarding the latest media sensation about the Cracker Barrel logo. Well, my granny told me long ago that it's best not to wade into politics of things. But I would like to say this. Did you know that the logo for Cracker Barrel was actually designed in 1977 when Danny was having lunch with an artist that he had hired to create the logo? At which time, the artist took a napkin and a pen and scribbled out the logo as the two men had lunch. Well, how about that? Folks, thanks so much for watching this video. And by the way, this channel, the Appalachia channel, that you're watching right now is actually ran by my daughter, and she lets me tell stories on here from time to time. So if you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button. Thanks so much, my friends, and I look forward to hearing your thoughts in the comments below, and I'll see you on the next story.